The betrayal. The crystalline spires of Zephyria Prime glittered in the light of its twin suns, a breathtaking sight that had inspired countless works of art over the millennia. But today, the beauty was marred by an underlying tension that rippled through the empathic field connecting all Zephyrians. Something was wrong, terribly wrong, and every being on the planet could feel it. In the Grand Chamber of Harmony, the Zephyrian High Council gathered in an emergency session. Ilara, a young captain in the Zephyrian Exploration Corps, stood at attention, her iridescent skin shimmering with barely contained anxiety. She watched as First Resonator Thelen, the leader of their people, addressed the assembly. Esteemed colleagues, Thelen's melodic voice carried a note of urgency that sent shivers through the chamber. Our worst fears have been confirmed. The recent seismic disturbances are not natural. Our planet's core has been compromised. A collective gasp echoed through the room, followed by a cacophony of worried whispers. Ilara felt her heart's race as the implications sank in. Their homeworld, the cradle of Zephyrian civilization for over 1,000,000 years, was dying. How? Demanded Counselor Vex, his usually calm demeanor cracking. Our planetary shields are impenetrable. Thulin's expression darkened. It appears we have been betrayed. Preliminary investigations suggest Droken technology was used to bypass our defenses. The name sent a chill through the assembly. The Drokens, a militaristic species known for their brutal efficiency, had long viewed the pacifistic Zephyrians as weak and unworthy of their place in the galactic community. But why? Ilara found herself speaking before she could stop herself, drawing surprised looks from the council members. We've never posed a threat to anyone. Sometimes, Captain, Thelen replied softly. Our very existence is threat enough to those who cannot understand our way of life. As the reality of their situation sank in, the council erupted into frantic debate. Proposals were thrown back and forth, from attempting to heal the planet's core using their collective empathic abilities to seeking aid from other alien races. But with each passing moment, Ilara could feel the tremors beneath her feet growing stronger. Silence. Thelen's voice cut through the chaos. We must act now. I will personally lead a delegation to the Galactic Council. Surely, when faced with the extinction of an entire species, they will not turn their backs on us. Ilara watched as hope flickered across the faces of the council members. But deep in her core, she felt a growing sense of dread. The galaxy was a cold, often cruel place, and the Zephyrians' faith in the inherent goodness of others had left them woefully unprepared for its harsh realities. As the council adjourned to prepare for the emergency summit, Ilara found herself approached by her mentor, Commander Zale. The older Zephyrian's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with a mix of concern and determination. Ilara, Zale spoke in a hushed tone. I have a task for you, one that goes against everything we believe in, but may be our only hope for survival. Intrigued and slightly alarmed, Ilara followed Zale to a secluded alcove. There, the commander revealed a plan so audacious, so contrary to Zephyrian principles, that Ilara's first instinct was to reject it outright. Prepare our ships for evacuation, she whispered, incredulous. But that would mean abandoning our home, Zale finished, pain evident in his voice. Yes, but it may be our only chance if the Galactic Council fails us. Ilara's mind raced. The very idea of leaving Zephyria Prime was anathema to their people. Their deep connection to their homeworld was more than just cultural. It was intrinsic to their biology, their very essence. How can you be so sure the Council will fail us? Ilara asked, desperately seeking reassurance. Zale's expression hardened. Because I've seen the galaxy for what it truly is, beyond our borders. The Galactic Council cares little for species they deem inconsequential. The word stung, but Ilara couldn't deny the truth in it. The Zephyrians' dedication to art, empathy, and peaceful coexistence had often been mocked by other races as weakness. What would you have me do? Ilara asked, realizing that her world was about to change irrevocably. "Quietly prepare our long-range vessels," Zale instructed. "Gather supplies. Create lists of essential personnel and civilians. If the worst comes to pass, we must be ready to save as many of our people as we can." As Ilara nodded, accepting the weight of this secret mission, a violent tremor shook the building. Cracks appeared in the crystalline walls, and in the distance, they could hear the sound of structures collapsing. "Go now," Zale urged, his voice tight with urgency. "And may the harmony guide us all." Over the next few days, as First Resonator Thalen and his delegation prepared for their journey to the Galactic Council, Ilara worked tirelessly behind the scenes. She coordinated with loyal members of the Exploration Corps, retrofitting ships designed for scientific missions into potential arcs for their people. Every tremor, every report of new fissures opening across their once pristine world, spurred Ilara to work faster. She felt the pain of her people, their fear and confusion, but she channeled it into determination. If the unthinkable happened, she would be ready. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. The Galactic Council convened in an extraordinary session to hear the Zephyrians' plea. Ilara, along with millions of her fellow Zephyrians, watched the proceedings via holographic broadcast in the Grand Chamber of Harmony. First Resonator Thalen stood before the assembled representatives of 100 alien races, his voice clear and imploring as he detailed the Zephyrians' plight. Ilara felt a surge of pride at his dignity in the face of such adversity. But as the session progressed, pride gave way to horror. Instead of sympathy, the Zephyrians' plea was met with indifference, even contempt. The Zephyrians have long benefited from the protection of this council, while contributing little. The Drokan representative sneered, his reptilian features twisted in disdain. Perhaps this is nature's way of correcting an imbalance. Gasps of shock echoed through the Grand Chamber. Ilara felt her blood run cold at the callousness of the statement. "Surely you can't mean that." Thelen's voice cracked with disbelief. "We are facing extinction. Does the life of our entire species mean nothing to you?" The Galactic Council erupted into heated debate. Some voices called for aid, but they were quickly drowned out by those arguing against wasting resources on a non-essential race. As the argument raged on, Ilara's communicator buzzed. A message from Commander Zale flashed across the screen. "It's time. Initiate Protocol Exodus." With a heavy heart, Ilara slipped out of the Grand Chamber. As she made her way to the spaceport, she could feel the planet's death throes intensifying. The ground shook continuously now, and in the sky, ominous cracks had begun to appear, glowing with the heat of the planet's wounded core. At the spaceport, organized chaos reigned. The Exploration Corps, acting on Zale's orders, had begun loading civilians onto the retrofitted ships. Families huddled together, clutching whatever precious belongings they could carry, their faces etched with fear and confusion. Captain Ilara, a young ensign, called out, rushing to her side. "We're at 60% capacity, but we're running out of time. The planetary defense grid is starting to fail, and we're detecting multiple Drokan ships entering the system." Ilara's heart sank. The Drokans, not content with destroying their world, were coming to ensure no Zephyrians escaped. She made a split-second decision. "Begin launch sequences for all loaded ships," she ordered, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her soul. "I'll lead a defensive squadron to buy us time." As Ilara raced to her fighter, she saw First Resonator Thalen's ship returning from the Galactic Council. She wanted to wait, to explain, to seek his blessing for this desperate plan. But another violent quake nearly knocked her off her feet, and she knew there was no more time. Leaping into her fighter, Ilara took to the skies. Behind her, the first wave of refugee ships began to rise, carrying the last hope of the Zephyrian people. Ahead, the first Drokan warships appeared, weapons hot and closing fast. As Ilara led her squadron into battle, her mind raced with the enormity of what was happening. Their civilization, their history, their very way of life, all of it was about to be lost. But as long as some Zephyrians survived, there was hope. Hope for a new beginning. Hope that somewhere in the vast, uncaring galaxy, they would find a place to call home. With determination burning in her hearts, Ilara accelerated towards the Droken fleet. The fate of her people now rested on her shoulders, and she would not let them down. The battle for the future of the Zephyrians had begun. Desperate measures. The vast emptiness of space stretched before Captain Ilara's viewport, punctuated by the twinkling of distant stars. But the beauty of the cosmos was lost on her as she surveyed the ragtag fleet of Zephyrian vessels limping through the void. It had been 3 standard months since their desperate flight from their dying homeworld, and each passing day brought new challenges that tested the limits of Zephyrian resolve. Status report. Ilara commanded, her voice betraying a weariness that seemed to permeate the entire bridge of the flagship, Hope's Resonance. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Venna, approached with a datapad. "It's not good, Captain. Life support systems on the civilian ships are operating at 62% efficiency and declining. Food synthesizers are failing faster than we can repair them." And Venna hesitated, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with distress. "Go on," Ilara prompted, steeling herself for more bad news. "We've lost contact with the Stargazer. That's the 3rd ship to fall behind in the last week." Ilara closed her eyes, feeling the weight of 50,000 lives pressing down on her shoulders. The Zephyrian fleet, never designed for long-term space travel, was falling apart around them. And with Droken pursuit ships still hounding their trail, they couldn't afford to slow down or stop for repairs. "What's our current position?" Ilara asked, turning to the navigation officer. "We're approaching the outer rim of the Veil Nebula, Captain. It's uncharted space, but the nebula's radiation should mask our signatures from Droken sensors." A spark of hope flickered in Ilara's hearts. Perhaps they could find a moment's respite, a chance to regroup and repair their battered fleet. But as she opened her mouth to give the order, alarms blared across the bridge. Multiple contacts. The sensor officer shouted. Droken warships, closing fast. Ilara's mind raced. They were in no condition for another confrontation. The last skirmish had cost them 2 escort vessels and irreplaceable lives. "All ships, emergency protocols," Ilara commanded. "Dive into the nebula. Scatter formation Omega-3. We'll rendezvous at the predetermined coordinates once we've lost them." As the Zephyrian fleet plunged into the swirling gases of the Veil Nebula, Ilara could only pray to the harmony that they would all make it through. The Hope's Resonance shuddered as it entered the turbulent region, its shield straining against the radioactive particles bombarding the hull. Hours passed in tense silence as they navigated the treacherous nebula. When they finally emerged at the rendezvous point, Ilara's heart sank. Only 2/3 of the fleet had made it through. "Captain," Venna's voice was hushed. "What do we do now?" Before Ilara could respond, a new alarm sounded, but this one was different. Not the harsh warning of an enemy approach, but a soft, repeating ping that spoke of an opportunity. "It's a distress beacon," the communications officer announced, surprise evident in his voice. "Non-Droken in origin. It's coming from an uncharted system just beyond the nebula's edge." Ilara felt a surge of conflicting emotions. Their own situation was dire, but the Zephyrian code demanded they aid those in need whenever possible. Could they afford to investigate? Could they afford not to? Set a course, Ilara decided, but approach with caution. It could be a trap. As they neared the source of the distress call, the fleet's long-range sensors picked up a single ship adrift in space. Its design was unlike anything in the Zephyrian database. "Life signs?" Ilara queried. "Affirmative, but they're weak and fading fast," came the response. Ilara made a split-second decision. "Prepare a boarding party. I'll lead it myself." Despite protests from her crew about the potential danger, Ilara knew she couldn't ask anyone else to take this risk. As her shuttle approached the alien vessel, she marveled at its sleek design, so different from the organic curves of Zephyrian ships. The boarding party entered through an airlock, their environmental suits protecting them from the ship's failing life support. As they made their way through darkened corridors, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the cusp of something momentous. They found the crew in the ship's central chamber, bipedal beings with a fascinating range of skin tones and hair colors. Most were unconscious, but one figure stirred as Ilara approached. Who are you?" The alien rasped, eyes widening at the sight of the Zephyrians. Ilara knelt beside the being, activating her suit's universal translator. "I am Captain Ilara of the Zephyrian fleet. We picked up your distress call. We're here to help." The alien's eyes darted between Ilara and her team, a mix of fear and wonder in their gaze. "Zephyrian, we thought we were alone out here. I'm Maya, Captain Maya Chen of the HSS Curiosity. We're human." As Ilara's team worked to stabilize the human crew and repair their ship's critical systems, she and Captain Chen exchanged hurried explanations of their situations. The humans, it turned out, were on a deep space exploration mission, pushing the boundaries of their known universe when they encountered a spatial anomaly that damaged their ship. "We had a lot to learn from each other," Maya said, her strength returning as the Zephyrian medical team worked their empathic healing abilities. "But first, we need to get out of here. Our long-range sensors picked up multiple ships heading this way before we lost power. They didn't look friendly." Ilara's heart raced. The Drokans had found them again. "We need to move now." "But your ship?" Maya's expression hardened with determination. "The Curiosity can fly. She's tougher than she looks, and we're not about to abandon you after you saved our lives." As both crews scrambled to prepare for departure, a tense conversation was taking place aboard the Drokan lead ship, the Iron Fist. "High Commander," a subordinate reported, "we've tracked the Zephyrian refugees to this sector, but we're also picking up an unknown vessel. Its energy signature doesn't match any known species in our database." High Commander Vexkar, the architect of Zephyria's destruction, leaned forward in his command chair. "Interesting. Perhaps the weaklings have found some new allies. No matter. We'll crush them all the same. Prepare all weapons. This ends today." Back on the Curiosity, Maya was having a heated exchange with her own government via subspace communication. "With all due respect, sir," Maya argued, her voice tight with controlled anger. "These people need our help. They're refugees fleeing genocide." "Your orders were clear, Captain Chen." The stern face of Admiral Harrison filled the view screen. "No contact with alien life forms. You are to return to Earth immediately. And leave them to die." Maya shot back. "That's not who we are. That's not what humanity stands for." "Your idealism is admirable, Captain, but misplaced," Harrison replied coldly. "We can't risk the safety of Earth for an alien species we know nothing about. I'm ordering you to disengage immediately." Maya's hand hovered over the communication panel, her crew watching in tense silence. In that moment, she knew her next action would change not just her life, but potentially the course of human history. With a decisive motion, she cut the transmission. "Plot a course to rendezvous with the Zephyrian fleet," she ordered her navigation officer. "And someone get me Captain Ilara. We need to pool our resources if we're going to outrun those Drokan bastards." As the Curiosity fell into formation with the Zephyrian ships, Ilara couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. These humans, with their strange appearance and fierce determination, were unlike any species she had encountered before. "Captain Chen," Ilara said, her voice carrying across the newly established communication link between their ships, "I don't know how to thank you for what you're risking on our behalf." Maya's reply was firm and unwavering. "There's no need for thanks, Captain Ilara. This is what's right. Now, let's show these Drokan bullies what happens when they mess with the combined might of humanity and Zephyria." As the ragtag fleet of refugees and explorers prepared to make their stand, a new chapter in galactic history was about to unfold. The Zephyrians, abandoned by the galaxy they once trusted, had found an unexpected ally in humanity, and together they would face whatever challenges the universe had in store. Humanity divided. The news of the HSS Curiosity's encounter with the Zephyrian refugees spread across Earth like wildfire. What had begun as a routine deep space exploration mission had suddenly thrust humanity onto the galactic stage, and the repercussions were felt in every corner of the globe. In the United Earth Government's emergency session, holographic representations of world leaders argued fiercely over the appropriate course of action. The chamber, usually a model of civil discourse, had devolved into barely controlled chaos. "Captain Chen's actions are nothing short of treason," thundered the Australian representative, his face flushed with anger. "She has endangered the entire human race by involving us in an interstellar conflict we know nothing about." "And what would you have had her do?" countered the Nigerian delegate, her voice sharp with indignation. "Leave an entire species to die. Is that the face of humanity we want to show to the galaxy?" As the debate raged on, United Earth President Adira Sharma sat in silent contemplation. The weight of the decision before her was immense. On one side, the risk of drawing the ire of a technologically superior hostile force. On the other, the moral imperative to aid a people in desperate need. "Enough." Sharma's quiet voice cut through the din, silencing the chamber. "We cannot make this decision in isolation. The people must have a voice in this. I am calling for a global referendum. In 1 week's time, the citizens of Earth will decide whether we extend our hand in friendship to the Zephyrians, or whether we turn our backs on them." The announcement sent shockwaves through society. News outlets buzzed with constant coverage. Experts from every field weighed in with their opinions, and social media platforms were alight with heated discussions. In New Beijing, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a renowned xenobiologist, gave an impassioned interview on the potential benefits of alliance with the Zephyrians. "Their empathic abilities alone could revolutionize our understanding of consciousness," she argued. "Not to mention the advancements in art, culture, and possibly even technology that could come from peaceful exchange." Meanwhile, in the sprawling arcologies of New Amsterdam, a different voice was gaining traction. Victor Darius, a charismatic politician known for his isolationist views, stood before a massive crowd, his words whipping them into a frenzy. "They call themselves refugees," Darius sneered, his voice echoing across the plaza. "But how do we know they're not the vanguard of an invasion force? These aliens, with their mind-reading powers, could be the greatest threat humanity has ever faced." As Darius spoke, hidden cameras live-streamed his speech to millions around the world. His message of fear and xenophobia resonated with those who saw the arrival of the Zephyrians as a threat to human purity and independence. In orbit above Earth, aboard the International Space Station, astronaut commander Sarah Chen watched the unfolding debate with a mixture of fascination and concern. As the sister of Captain Maya Chen, she found herself thrust into the spotlight, besieged by requests for interviews and statements. "I know my sister," Sarah told a panel of journalists via video link. "If she chose to help these aliens, to risk everything to save them, then they must be worth saving. Maya has always stood for the best of what humanity can be. We should follow her example." But even as Sarah spoke, sinister forces were at work behind the scenes. In a secret facility deep beneath the Mojave Desert, a group of shadowy figures gathered around a holographic display showing the approaching Zephyrian fleet. "Our agent aboard the Curiosity has made contact," a gravelly voice announced. "They're prepared to sabotage the ship's systems at our command." "Excellent," replied a figure shrouded in darkness. "If we can't convince humanity to reject these aliens, we'll force their hand." A tragic accident should turn public opinion firmly against this foolish alliance. As the day of the referendum approached, tensions on Earth reached a fever pitch. Pro-Zephyrian rallies clashed with anti-alien protesters in cities around the world. The global network, humanity's unified internet, buzzed with conspiracy theories, impassioned pleas, and heated debates. In this charged atmosphere, an unexpected voice cut through the noise. Dr. Imani Okoro, a soft-spoken philosopher and ethicist from Lagos, found her public address going viral, shared across every platform, and translated into hundreds of languages. "We stand at a crossroads," Dr. Okoro began, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the frenzied debate surrounding her. "Not just for our species, but for our very souls. The question before us is not simply whether to help the Zephyrians. It is a question of who we are and who we wish to become." As Dr. Okoro spoke, people around the world fell silent, hanging on her every word. Throughout our history, humanity has faced moments of choice between fear and compassion, between isolation and connection. Each time, the choice we made shaped the course of our civilization. Now we face that choice on a galactic scale. Her words resonated deeply, causing many to reconsider their positions. Even Victor Darius, watching the address from his campaign headquarters, felt a flicker of doubt. "The Zephyrians come to us not as conquerors, but as fellow beings in need," Dr. Okoro continued. "They offer us not just the chance to save them, but to save the best parts of ourselves. In extending our hand to them, we reaffirm our commitment to the values that have lifted us from our own dark ages: empathy, courage, and the unshakable belief in the dignity of all sentient life." As Dr. Okoro's address concluded, a palpable shift could be felt in the global consciousness. Poles that had been evenly split began to tilt in favor of aiding the Zephyrians. But the forces opposed to the alliance were not about to concede defeat. As the final hours before the referendum ticked away, they put their plan into action. Aboard the HFY Curiosity, now in high Earth orbit along with the Zephyrian fleet, Captain Maya Chen was awakened by blaring alarms. "Status report," she barked, racing to the bridge. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Rodriguez, looked up from his console with a face pale with shock. "Captain, we're detecting massive power fluctuations throughout the ship. Life support is failing, and our containment fields are destabilizing. If this continues, we'll have a cascade failure that could take out half the fleet." Maya's mind raced. This was no accident. Someone had intentionally sabotaged her ship, putting not only the Curiosity but the entire Zephyrian fleet at risk. "Notify the Zephyrian ships," she ordered. "Tell them to put distance between us, and get me a secure channel to Earth. They need to know what's happening." As Maya fought to save her ship and crew, the eyes of humanity turned skyward. The referendum forgotten, people around the world watched in horror as the drama unfolded in orbit. In the United Earth Government Chamber, President Sharma received the emergency transmission from the Curiosity. The implications were clear. This was an attempt to scuttle the alliance before it could even be voted on. With mere minutes to act, Sharma faced the most critical decision of her career. The fate of two species now hung in the balance, and the choice she made would echo across the stars for generations to come. As she opened her mouth to give the order that would change the course of human history, the world held its breath, united for a moment in anticipation of what was to come. Forging an alliance. The red emergency lights bathed the bridge of the HSS Curiosity in an eerie glow as Captain Maya Chen raced against time to save her ship and crew. Sweat beaded on her brow as her fingers flew across the control panel, desperately trying to reroute power and stabilize the failing systems. "Captain," Lieutenant Rodriguez called out, his voice strained. "The Zephyrian ships are moving to assist. They're linking with our systems somehow." Maya's eyes widened as she watched the impossible unfold on her view screen. Tendrils of energy, visible even in the vacuum of space, stretched between the Curiosity and the nearest Zephyrian vessels. As the connection solidified, the alarms on the bridge began to quiet, one by one. "They're stabilizing our power grid," Maya breathed, awe evident in her voice. But how? The answer came moments later as Captain Ilara's face appeared on the main view screen, her expression a mix of concern and determination. "Captain Chen, we've established an empathic link with your ship's eye. We're channeling our collective energy to support your systems, but we can't maintain this indefinitely." Maya nodded, her mind racing. "Understood. We need to find the source of the sabotage. Can your empathic abilities help us locate any discordant minds on board?" Ilara's eyes narrowed in concentration. Yes, I believe we can. Give us a moment." As the Zephyrians worked their empathic magic, events on Earth were unfolding at a breakneck pace. President Sharma, having seen the transmission from the Curiosity, made her decision. "Launch the emergency response teams," she ordered, her voice carrying the weight of history, "and open a channel to the Zephyrian fleet. Tell them Earth stands with them." The announcement sent shockwaves around the world. In New Beijing, Dr. Yuki Tanaka and her team scrambled to prepare for the arrival of the Zephyrians, their labs a flurry of activity as they readied themselves to study and assist the alien refugees. Meanwhile, in his New Amsterdam headquarters, Victor Darius watched the unfolding events with a mixture of rage and desperation. "This isn't over," he snarled to his advisors. "Prepare our contingency plan. If we can't keep them off Earth, we'll make sure they never feel welcome here." Back on the Curiosity, Maya and her security team raced through the corridors, guided by the Zephyrians' empathic insights. They found the saboteur in the engine room, a nondescript technician whose eyes widened in fear as he was cornered. "Why?" Maya demanded, her voice hard as she confronted the man. "Why would you risk all our lives?" The technician's face contorted with a mixture of fear and defiance. "You don't understand," he spat. "These aliens will be the death of humanity. I was trying to save us all." As the saboteur was taken into custody, Maya couldn't shake a feeling of unease. This wasn't just the act of one misguided individual. There was something larger at play here. With the immediate crisis averted, the complex dance of integrating the Zephyrians into Earth society began. The Red Plains of Mars were chosen as the site for the first Zephyrian settlement, a decision that sparked both excitement and controversy. Dr. Tanaka found herself at the forefront of the integration efforts, working tirelessly to bridge the gap between human and Zephyrian biology. "Their empathic abilities are simply extraordinary," she explained to a rapt audience of fellow scientists. "Early tests suggest they can actually influence the growth of plants through focused emotional energy. The implications for terraforming Mars are staggering. But for every step forward, there seem to be new challenges. Anti-alien sentiment, fanned by Darius and his followers, led to protests and isolated incidents of violence against Zephyrians on Earth. The aliens' natural bioluminescence made them easy targets, forcing many to adopt holographic disguises when venturing into human cities. On Mars, the fledgling colony faced its own set of problems. The harsh environment proved challenging even for the adaptable Zephyrians, and cooperation with the existing human settlements was often strained. It was in this tense atmosphere that an unexpected discovery was made. Lyra, a young Zephyrian child, was playing in one of the biodomes when she felt a strange resonance. Curious, she placed her hands on the rusty Martian soil and closed her eyes in concentration. To the astonishment of human and Zephyrian observers alike, the patch of soil beneath Lyra's hands began to shimmer with an otherworldly light. Moments later, tiny green shoots emerged, growing at an impossible rate. "It's not possible," one of the human botanists whispered, his voice filled with wonder. "Nothing should be able to grow in this soil without years of treatment." But Ilara, watching the scene unfold, felt a surge of recognition. "The resonance," she breathed. "It's similar to the deep connection we had with Zephyria Prime. Somehow, this child has tapped into Mars' dormant biosphere." The implications were enormous. If the Zephyrians could accelerate the terraforming of Mars, it would not only provide them with a new home, but also open up unprecedented opportunities for human expansion into space. As news of the discovery spread, public opinion began to shift. The image of a Zephyrian child bringing life to the barren Martian landscape captured the imagination of millions. Even some of Darius' supporters began to question their stance. But Darius himself was far from defeated. In a secure underground facility, he met with a group of shadowy figures, representatives from various anti-alien factions around the world. "The time for half measures is over," Darius declared, his eyes glinting with fanatical intensity. "If we're to save humanity from this insidious invasion, we must strike decisively. Our agents are in place on Mars. Soon, we'll show the world the true face of these alien manipulators." As Darius and his conspirators plotted, they remained unaware that they were being watched. In orbit above Mars, aboard a cloaked ship of alien design, a figure shrouded in darkness observed the unfolding events with great interest. "Most fascinating," the figure mused, its voice carrying the weight of eons. "The humans continue to surprise us. Perhaps they are the key we've been searching for all along." A subordinate approached, its form rippling with uncertainty. "Great One, the Droken fleet approaches. They seem intent on finishing what they started with the Zephyrians. Should we intervene?" The shadowy leader considered for a moment before responding. "Not yet. Let us see how our human friends handle this challenge. Their response will tell us everything we need to know." Back on Mars, blissfully unaware of the forces converging around them, human and Zephyrian scientists worked side by side, marveling at Lyra's incredible ability. The child, her eyes wide with innocent wonder, continued to coax life from the rusty soil, each new sprout a symbol of hope for the future. Captain Maya Chen, watching the proceedings from the command center, felt a swell of pride. Despite all the challenges, despite the sabotage and the political maneuvering, this is what they had fought for. The chance for two species to come together and create something beautiful. But even as she allowed herself a moment of optimism, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that their trials were far from over. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see what this fledgling alliance would do next. As the first Earthborn sunset painted the Martian sky in hues of deep red and gold, human and Zephyrian alike looked to the horizon, wondering what new challenges and opportunities the coming days would bring. The forge of adversity had brought them together, but it would be their choices in the face of the looming storm that would truly define this newborn alliance. The Galactic Gambit. The Martian sky blazed with unnatural light as the Droken war fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel, their massive ships casting ominous shadows over the fledgling human Zephyrian colony. Alarms blared across both Earth and Mars as the long-dreaded confrontation finally arrived. In the United Earth Defense Headquarters, President Sharma stood before a holographic display of the solar system, her face etched with determination. "Status report," she demanded. Admiral Curry, her chief of staff, responded grimly. "The Droken fleet outnumbers our combined forces 3-1. Their technology is more advanced, but we have the home field advantage. It's going to be a tough fight, Madam President." Sharma nodded, her mind racing through scenarios. "What about the Zephyrian ships?" "They're not built for combat," Curry replied. "But they're offering to support our fleet with their empathic abilities. It's untested in battle, but it might give us an edge." As Earth's defense forces scrambled to meet the Droken threat, a different kind of battle was unfolding on the surface of Mars. Victor Darius, having infiltrated the colony with a team of loyalists, launched his desperate gambit. Alarms blared through the biodomes as explosions rocked the facility. Captain Maya Chen, who had been overseeing the colony's defenses, raced toward the source of the disturbance. She arrived to find Darius and his men holding a group of scientists hostage, including young Lyra, the Zephyrian child whose unique abilities had brought hope to the terraforming project. "It ends here," Darius snarled, his eyes wild with fanatical fervor. "No more alien influence. No more threat to human purity. We'll cleanse Mars of these invaders, starting with this abomination." He gestured menacingly toward Lyra, who stood trembling but defiant. Maya's hand hovered over her weapon, her mind racing to find a solution that wouldn't endanger the hostages. But before she could act, an unexpected voice cut through the tension. "You're right, Mr. Darius. It does end here." Dr. Yuki Tanaka stepped forward, her usual lab coat replaced by an environmental suit, but not in the way you think. As all eyes turned to her, Tanaka continued, her voice steady. I've studied the Zephyrians, their biology, their empathic abilities, and I've made a discovery that changes everything. They're not invaders, Mr. Darius. They're our long-lost cousins. A murmur of shock ran through both the hostages and the attackers. Darius' face contorted in disbelief. Impossible. They're aliens. Genetically modified humans, Tanaka corrected, sent out eons ago as part of a long-forgotten seeding program. The Zephyrians are the result of human adaptation to another world. Their empathic abilities, their bioluminescence, it's all the result of guided evolution. They're not a threat to human purity. They're proof of humanity's incredible potential. As Tanaka's words sank in, confusion and doubt spread through Darius' followers. The fanatical leader's control began to slip, and in that moment of hesitation, Maya sought her chance. With lightning speed, she disarmed Darius, while the hostages, emboldened by the revelation, overpowered the remaining attackers. But even as this crisis was averted, a greater one loomed above. The battle between Earth's defense forces and the Droken fleet raged across the solar system. Despite the valiant efforts of human pilots and the supportive empathic resonance of the Zephyrians, the technologically superior Droken ships pushed ever closer to Mars. Aboard the Droken flagship, High Commander Vexkar watched the battle unfold with cruel satisfaction. These humans are more resilient than expected, he mused to his second-in-command. But it matters not. Once we crush them, the galaxy will finally see the price of harboring weaklings. Yet as Vexkar prepared to deliver the killing blow, an alert blared across his bridge. Unknown energy signature detected. An officer called out, "It's massive, unlike anything we've ever seen." Space itself seemed to ripple and tear as an enormous ship, dwarfing even the largest Droken vessel, emerged from what appeared to be a fold in reality. Its design was both familiar and alien, as if someone had taken elements of Zephyrian, human, and utterly unknown architecture and blended them into something new and awe-inspiring. On Earth, Mars, and every ship in the system, all eyes turned to this new arrival. Communications channels burst to life as a message was broadcast simultaneously to all factions. Attention, beings of Earth, Mars, and the Droken Empire. I am Archon Zara of the Galactic Concord. We have been observing your conflict with great interest. The image that appeared on screens throughout the system was that of a being that seemed to blend characteristics of various species, hints of Zephyrian bioluminescence, the basic humanoid form shared by humans and Drokens, but with an aura of ancient wisdom that transcended any single race. Humanity, Zara continued, you have demonstrated courage, compassion, and ingenuity in the face of overwhelming odds. By embracing the Zephyrians and unlocking the secrets of your shared heritage, you have proven yourselves ready to join the greater galactic community. The Archon's gaze then turned stern. As for the Droken Empire, your actions have violated numerous Concord laws. Your campaign of xenocide against the Zephyrians and your unprovoked aggression against Earth have been noted. Stand down immediately or face the consequences. For a moment, the entire solar system seemed to hold its breath. Then, with a roar of defiance, Vexkar ordered his fleet to attack the Concord ship. We bow to no one, he bellowed. What followed was less a battle than a demonstration. Beams of energy that seemed to defy the laws of physics lanced out from the Concord vessel, disabling the Droken ships with pinpoint accuracy. In a matter of minutes, the once mighty invasion fleet hung helpless in space. As the dust settled, Archon Zara addressed the unified human Zephyrian forces. You stand at a crossroads, young ones. The path ahead will not be easy. There are wonders and terrors in this galaxy beyond your imagining. But you have proven that together, you have the strength to face them. The Galactic Concord extends an invitation to both humanity and the Zephyrians. Join us. Let your united voices be heard in the great chorus of sentient life. The choice, as always, is yours. In the days that followed, as the Droken threat was formally neutralized and the Concord opened diplomatic channels, a new sense of purpose swept through the solar system. The revelation of humanity's ancient seeding program and the Zephyrians' true origins sparked a renaissance of scientific and cultural exchange. On Mars, young Lyra stood hand in hand with human children, their combined efforts accelerating the planet's transformation. New cities rose, blending the best of human and Zephyrian design, as the red planet slowly became a second blue marble. Captain Maya Chen, now appointed as Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Concord, stood aboard the observation deck of humanity's first true interstellar ship. As she looked out at the star-studded void, she felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. "Quite a view, isn't it?" Captain Ilara's voice came from behind her. The Zephyrian, once a refugee, now stood as Maya's co-ambassador and friend. Maya nodded, a smile playing on her lips. "It's daunting," she admitted. "There's so much out there we don't understand." Ilara's bioluminescence pulsed in a pattern Maya had come to recognize as amusement. "That's what makes it an adventure, my friend. And we'll face it together." As the ship prepared to make its first faster-than-light jump, carrying representatives of Earth and Zephyria to the Galactic Concord, Maya felt a surge of pride and hope. They had been tested by fire, by prejudice, by the very forces of the cosmos, and they had emerged stronger, not in spite of their differences, but because of them. The stars beckoned, promising challenges and wonders in equal measure. Humanity and their long-lost cousins, once abandoned by the galaxy, now stood ready to take their place among the stars. It was not an end, but a beginning, the dawn of a new age of exploration, cooperation, and limitless possibility. As the ship vanished into the depths of space, it carried with it the hopes and dreams of two peoples, now one. The galaxy would never be the same again.